Hi guys, it's Ben again, and this is another video panel that is actually shot literally the day after the panel on fighting with daggers point down. This came because I once again had a conversation with our Amp Guard friend, and yesterday on Saturday they did kind of a full costume get together for everybody, and she was laughing at the fact that, well, a lot of people are carrying weapons and a lot of people are choosing weapons that may not be suited for exactly what they want to do. The biggest, funniest thing was a young person who had a knife that was so large and so long that and then they were so unused to carrying it that when they sat down at the picnic benches to have lunch, it actually got caught and jabbed right into his groin. Ouch. Which basically comes back to the other question that she gave me, which was, hey Ben, how do you choose a knife for you? What's a good knife for me, for what I'm going to do with it? Sorry, I am getting many text messages while I do this. Anyway, since this is actually a question, what is a good knife for me, that I have been asked before at many conventions and Ren fairs and stuff, I thought, well, since I have to do a couple of fill-in panels in case we don't reopen on time, that I would do this video for you, okay? So the first thing I want to say is that what we're going to talk about now is not fantasy. It's going to be a little bit historical, but it also applies to the modern context, the modern world, okay? We are not talking fantasy. In fantasy, you can have knives that have 3 prongs that goes in all different directions. You can carry a Klingon knife that has a little thing that you push and 2 prongs come out. You can carry a Monster Hunter knife, which, was like literally a short sword. But hey, we're not talking about fantasy. We're talking about actual real world knives that we can use and carry, whether it be at fair or in real life. Okay. The second thing I want to point out is we're only going to talk about fixed blades, because fixed blades is more historical, and fixed blades is actually what you would actually be carrying around at a fair or at an event. And because if we were to talk about folding, that video can last an hour and a half, 2 hours with no problems whatsoever, because there's so many things to talk about for folding knives. But if you want to hear me talk about folding knives and give you my thoughts and show you the things to look for and the things to be careful of, let me know. I'd be happy to make that video for you as soon as I get my collection back from where I stored it with Dave. Okay? Last but not least, hey, again, I am going to be using props. Okay? Not a lot this time, but bear with me as I grab them and move them around. Okay? So, what knife is best for, I won't say me, I'll say you. What knife is best for you? Okay, and how do you figure that out? And there's a lot of choices out there. There really is. For me, it really comes down to 4 things. I'm a Marine, you guys know that. I always have 4 things, 3 things, 5 things, whatever. And that is size, the use of the knife, the cost of the knife, and the practicalities of having that knife. Okay? And we're going to go through them one at a time. Okay? Number 1, size. Hey, I don't mean the size of the knife, although that is something to be considered, okay? I mean size for you, okay? If the knife is bigger than the length of your waist to your knee, it's probably too big for you. If you're a jolly green giant like Tom 2 or a big guy like Moose and the knife sits in your hand and only about that much blade comes out, it's probably too small for you, okay? You have to look at it. Like, there are knives that are like this, and if you look at it, it's actually pretty good blade distance for me, okay? There are knives that are like this. There are knives that are like this. There are knives that are like this. There are knives, that are like this. And there are knives that are like that, okay? And you have to figure out what is a good size for you, okay? Can you carry the weight of the knife, all right? The thing you have to remember is knives are meant to be used, okay? If I have a Twilight Gack, which is awesome, okay? It's a beautiful knife. It's wonderful. But probably not going to give me the control I need if I'm cooking, right? So, can you carry the weight? Can you defend yourself with the weight if that is one of the purposes of your knife? Okay? Can you carry the bulk? All right? Not all of us are big people. If you carry a Twilight Gack everywhere you go, that's about 1.5 pounds on your belt that you're going to carry with you wherever you go. So size, okay? Yes, you do have to think about the size of your blade, but I'm going to get to that in my recommendations, okay? And yes, you're going to have to look at the shape of your blade. But I think that's a matter of practicality and what you're going to use it for, which is the next topic. Ha ha! What are you going to use the knife for? Okay? Are you going to use it in the kitchen almost all the time? Are you going to use it for hunting, to gut your game, to cut line? Are you going to use it for eating? Okay? Because especially if we're at Ren Fair, yeah, you ate with a knife, okay? Are you going to use it for farm work? Is your knife going to be used to be cutting wood or leather, or, maybe even shave off pieces of rock, okay? What are you going to use it for? Because this, while a wonderful knife, is not very great for chopping vegetables. And this, while quite frankly is great to defend yourself with, is probably not what you're going to be using to carve leather. Okay? And you have to remember that. Okay? Now, some of you will say, well, hey, Ben, there are specialty knives for doing those tasks. And yes, absolutely, there are specialty knives for doing those tasks. But you're not going to carry those specialty knives everywhere you go day by day. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about something you're going to carry with you every day wherever you go. Okay? So what is the knife that you want really going to be used for? All right? Me, I am a huge fan of multitasking knives, okay, or all use knives. All right, this is why I tend to buy a typical traditional fixed blade of different sizes. Okay, this is a modern one. Okay, it is pretty much the exact same thing, don't you think? Yeah, except this one is modern materials and this one is actually organic materials. And if you'll note, I also really like the sacks because these are multi-use knives and they're every-use knives, okay? Does it do everything perfectly all the time? No. But does it get the job done all the time? Yes, and that's what we're looking for, okay? The other thing too is, why buy multiple knives? Okay. Yes, you should buy, if you're a leather worker, if you're a metal worker, if you're a woodworker, and you need the specialty tools, yes, but at that point they're tools. They're no longer just knives. Okay. Why would you want to carry multiple knives with you wherever you go? Okay. Does it look good? Does it make you look tough? Yeah, it might. Okay. And it looks great at fair. I understand that. People walking around with multiple knives and multiple daggers and all that stuff, and it looks great. But the truth is, if you were an actual person living in those historical times, try carrying it for days at a time. Okay. Even a pound, even a half a pound extra does get very tiring. Okay. Point number 3, cost. Are knives cheaper than swords? Yes. Okay. But they still cost money. Okay. And they still cost more money than, say, an axe, a mace, or a spearhead. Okay. But you still have to put out the money. So if you want a knife, why would you want multiple knives to do one single task for each knife? If that makes any sense. Okay. You might want one kitchen knife, but you're not carrying that every day. That stays at home. It's not going to weigh you down, or it's going to be in your pack with your pot. Okay. So when you're eating bunny rabbits with Golem, you can put potatoes and have a knife to cut it up with. Okay. You may look good with many knives on you. Okay. But historically, how many can you really afford? Especially if you're just the everyman or the every adventurer going out there. Okay, so think about cost. Think about cost. Number 4, practicality. Okay, Twilight Gack looks great. Feels great. Gack, gack, gack. But it's a fighting weapon knife. Okay, it's a chopper. All right. It is a I call it the Renaissance machete. All right. It's not very practical. It's not something I would wear everywhere, going to the bar, because that's literally asking for trouble. Okay. You have to remember that whatever knife you choose, it has to be everyday wear. You're going to be using this knife. Okay, for whatever reason, eating, cooking, chopping meat, chopping vegetables, hunting game, cutting leather, fixing stuff, you're going to use this just about every day. Okay, my honest advice is that if you have an everyday carry knife that you don't use at least once every 2 days, it's probably not an everyday knife. Okay, and I know for a fact that our members, own knives that have never been used to cut anything. It's just in the collection for whatever reason. Okay. Now, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. I personally don't like owning things that I don't use or that I can't use, but that's okay. I'm just saying, hey, if you choose a knife for every day, if you choose a knife that you're going to carry with you around at fair, it has to be practical. It can't be too big. It can't be too small. It can't be too heavy. It can't clunk in the way of your costume. It can't get in the way of your sword draw. It certainly can't get caught in your bowstring when you fire. Think about these things and put it on and try it on. Because at fair or at a tournament, that's not the time to find out that, the everyday knife that you have with you is getting in the way of doing what you have to do. Okay? Don't get something too fancy. Don't get something super tactical. Don't go to www.we-sell-weapons-online and buy the super tactical special forces combat. I mean, really, you don't need it. Okay? Looks great. If you want one, put it in your collection, but don't wear it as a practical. Okay. Don't go around wearing a brace of throwing knives. That's literally telling the world, hi, I'm an assassin, I'm a bad guy, and quite honestly, it was mostly fantasy anyway, okay? And it costs you a lot of money. So having said all that, and I talked about this with my Amp Guard friend too, and she was like, well, what do you recommend? What's a baseline? Something a beginner should think about when they're looking at their first knife to carry in costume or at Ren Fair or at an event? Good question. Ben's recommendations, all right? Number 1, it should be a multi-use knife. You shouldn't just buy a giant fancy chef knife. You shouldn't go out there and get something that, only has 1 or 2 applications, okay? I'm showing you this because this is my favorite. You don't have to follow me, but the native style knives. Heavy, it's thick. Look at it, it's pretty thick. It's heavy, it could be a pry bar, it could cut, it could slice, it could definitely defend me if I have to get into a knife fight. Has a pointy, has a curvy, has good handles, strong. Okay? A very reasonable choice, and usually about $50 or under. Holy cow. Okay? If you really want something a little heavier, a sax. Okay? There are very many forms of saxes out there. Okay? And I'm going to clarify things a little bit later. But a sax has an edge, is thick, okay, has a pointy, has a good handle, okay, and I recommend this particular model, and I recommend that for your everyday carry knife, it be no more than 10 inches long overall. I think this one's actually 11. But keep it to about 10 inches or less. Make it a multi-use knife. Okay? And you really can't go wrong. The next thing you want to look for is good fixtures. What the hell are good fixtures? Hey, these things. The metal handles. The handle itself. Okay, the bolts and the rivets. Make sure they're good fixtures. It shouldn't rattle. It shouldn't slide. It should feel good in your hand. Okay, if let's think about it. If a tool that you're working with doesn't feel comfortable in your hand, would you work with it again? You wouldn't. So you just wasted your money on something that you don't want to use yourself. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. Another topic thing to look for is, hey, and I'm going to start an argument here. Watch. Good steel, but not great. Okay? You do not need to go and buy that whatever highest ranked folded Damascus steel for this knife, because this is your everyday, you're going to use it knife. Okay? It's going to get dull. It's going to get chipped. It's going to get bent. You're going to cry when it gets dull, when it gets chipped, when it gets bent. Okay? The truth is, I know a lot of us do not clean and oil our weapons every quarter. So when you pull it out after not being at fair for 6 months, and it's all rusted, and it's that highest tier quality steel that you paid, $300 for that knife, you're going to cry. You're going to be sad. You will. And there's no doubt about it. Okay? So, good steel, but it doesn't have to be great. Okay? And the best part of that is if you get good steel, but not great steel, it's also more affordable. Okay? The last thing is that you're looking for is a good carry option that is comfortable. Okay? I have seen people carry knives here on a sheath, here on a sheath, over their back on a sheath, at their side like they were carrying a freaking tanto behind their back. I've seen bracers that have multiple knives stuck on them. I've seen sheaths that have 2 knives, sheaths that have 3 knives. I will be very honest with you. If you've ever seen the movie Snow White and the Huntsman, I am in awe of the huntsman's hunting knife pouch because I want one and I want all the knives that are in it. But what I'm saying is, hey, look, when you buy the knife or after you buy the knife, put it on, find a place that's comfortable with it. If the knife that you've got, and I'm going to say, hey, man, maybe you're a smaller person and you're carrying a Twilight gack around and it's thumping you on the leg with every step you take. Okay? Or if you're a very big person and it's digging into your jelly rolls every step you take. Or if you're a long-shanked person and that you literally have to just do this in order to hit the knife because your arms and your legs are so long, this is not a comfortable carry. This is not something you're going to want to carry with you all day. And guys, the truth is we work fairs and we're there for about 3 or 4 days. And I know for some of you, by the time that 3rd day rolls around, some of your stuff is getting uncomfortable. Okay? It's chafing. It's too tight. It's too loose. Whatever the reason. Well, your knife should not be one of those things because your knife is one of your major biggest tools. Okay? Doing a little examples. This is a Moira Finnish native knife. Sells for about $25. I wanted to get another one when we were in Solvang last week, but we forgot about it because we were too drunk and too full, which is okay. All right. This is an actual Finnish native knife. It's got birch on it. Okay. These sell for about $100 to $150, depending on what material you want the handle to be. Okay. I chose birch because I could not afford reindeer bone. Okay. I also chose birch because this particular set came with a smaller one for eating and whittling, which is really cool. I believe the set prices have gone up to about $200 now, though. Okay. This is a Filipino carry knife. Really cute. My sister got it for me. This is palm wood. And this is just a little knife they carry to eat with. Cut off a piece of the pork, chop up some vegetables, spear some vegetables and pork and eat with. Lovely little piece. Okay, I have no idea what it costs because my sister bought it on the market in the streets in the Philippines. Okay, but knowing my sister, probably not more than $10. This is a sax. Okay, I chose the staghorn handled sax. It's about 11 inches. Okay, it has Viking markings on it. Very practical. Very useful. Okay. And I'm not showing you Twilight Gack again because, quite frankly, that is a combat weapon. And it's not a practical knife. These are my practical knives. These are the knives that I use as a just basic carry when I'm at fair, when I'm camping, when I'm out. If we were to actually do an actual hunting trip, I would probably carry one of these. And yeah. These are my practical knives, and I recommend you look into similar models, be they a little curved, a little bigger, a little smaller, it doesn't really matter. Okay? To review, number 1, things to look for in a knife for you. Number 1, size. Not only the size of the knife itself, but the size compared to you to see if it fits you. I really feel bad for that new Amp Guard kid. It was probably very, very embarrassing to sit down on your own dagger right into your groin. And I bet everybody laughed at him. And it could have been avoided if he just thought it through and thought practicality instead of costuming. 2, what are you going to use it for? Hey, get multi-use knives. Don't buy a knife that's good for only one or two things. Get a multi-use knife that can be used for all sorts of different things, okay? Very, very important on that one. Sometimes, yes, I know a knife looks beautiful, but if you can only use it to shave, what good is it? Sometimes a knife is so cheap that, oh my God, you're so tempted. But if the only thing you can do with it is to chop vegetables, then what good is it? Okay. Number 3, cost. Very important. Hey, look, don't buy the cheapest thing out there, but don't go crazy and buy the most expensive thing. You don't need it, okay? You want to look at good fixtures. You want to look at good steel. You want to look at what's, reasonable for you, but you don't have to go out there. I mean, honestly, I can't imagine spending more than $100 on a knife. I really can't. And Twilight GAC, even then, was discounted, okay? So, yeah, I can't imagine it. I can't imagine spending more than $100 on a knife that I would actually carry and use every day. I can see people paying more than $100 for knives that they put in a collection and they never use. Okay? It's just that for me, that's kind of a waste of money. All right? Last one, of course, is be practical. Hey, can you carry it? Is it easy to carry? When you buy it, look at the carry options. And if you can, try it. Okay? Or even after you buy it, try it. You can modify it later if you need to. Okay? Let it be a practical item that, you can carry around. If you are honestly, and I'm throwing this out there, playing a peasant, you don't need a knightly knife that's like, a thin freaking point. Okay, you don't. Look at the practicalities of it. All right. So, guys, that's kind of my little rant on what's a good knife for you and how you can choose it. It came about during conversations with other friends who are also interested. And I hope that it has been of value to you. I know most of you already have knives, but, maybe you are finding it a little bit uncomfortable. Maybe you are finding it a little heavy. Maybe you're thinking about getting another knife because, well, we're always thinking about getting another knife, right? So I hope this has been helpful. I'm going to be continuing to do these little panel videos as I think of the topics, just so we can have some fillers as we look towards reopening and getting on with 2021. Okay. And again, if you want to learn about folding knives and tactical knives, let me know. I will make a video on that. All right. Take care of yourself, guys. And I'll see you later. Chop, chop.